All right, welcome. I am just my hands right now, as you can see. We are going to be building a palette today. I hope that this is clear. I did attempt to do this once. I'm looking in the viewfinder right now. Things look clear, so let's hope things stay in focus. So those of you who follow me on Instagram at YellBelleBeauty, you know that I very often will make build your own palettes. I'll do things where I dupe palettes. I'll make palettes based off of specific color stories that I'm feeling around a shade. So I'm really excited that today I have an idea to dupe 2 different palettes. And I want to do that with all of you. I'm going to start off by looking just with my singles. I do have some palettes that aren't my singles that are magnetic, but I want to see what I could find in my singles collection first. So I think we're going to start off and I'll show you all the BYOPs that I currently have and we'll talk about if we are dismantling them or not. So let's get started. First things first, if anyone wants to know where I got this palette, it was made by Death and Candy Custom Creations. Delaney, my friend on Instagram, she makes and sells these palettes. Definitely check her out. I will put her handle on the screen here. But this is actually my dupe of the Natasha Denona Yucca palette. As I film this, my wonderful fiance, got me the Yucca palette as a surprise. I want to keep this together so I could actually do swatches comparing my dupe without having the palette to the actual palette. So I'm going to try and keep this intact. I might have to pull a shade here or there. I do have this palette written down if I have to pull it back together, but I would like to just put this off to the side right now. This palette I made based around the Sandman bundle from Touch of Glam. So the 4 shimmers in here are the Sandman bundle from Touch of Glam. I believe that it is no longer available. If it is, there are probably very few left. It is a limited edition bundle. And then the mattes are a mixture of a few different things. So this right here, I could tell you Violet Voss, Morphe, Dandelions Co, Dandelions Co, Dandelions Co. That's an old Jeffree Star shade, old Jeffree Star shade. And I believe this is also an old Jeffree Star shade. So just a nice little mixture. I feel like this is a nice kind of pastel with a little bit of a neon pop to it. I have taken swatches of this. I haven't done any looks with this though. So I would like to keep this intact if possible. So I'm gonna put this off to the side as well. This palette I actually built the other day when I attempted to film and it was all nice and blurry, but this is just a little blue palette that I put together. I do feel fine taking this apart. I kind of just was talking through the idea of how to make a BYOP with all of you, which I am going to do again now. So I feel okay taking this apart and we will put these shadows away as I go through the shadows in my collection. So let's keep this on the side here. I have 4 large palettes right here that I got from Amazon. You'll notice that they're labeled generally incorrectly, so just kind of ignore the labels. So in here I have mostly Pretties for Your Face. If you didn't know, I am an affiliate of Pretties for Your Face. I'll put my code on the screen right here. It is YellBelleBeauty. I believe it saves you 10%. The code is affiliated. I do get store credit in exchange for you using that code. So if you use that, I greatly appreciate it, but no pressure. In addition to that, there are a few other brands mixed throughout here. So I see Black Moxie, this one, these 2, this one, those are all Black Moxie. And then my Menagerie singles are in here. So 1, 2, and then there's a green one, 3. The rest of these are all Pretties for Your Face. So some of these might look like dupes of one another, like these 2 right here, or a lot of the greens kind of look similar. I would say specifically these 2. But with that heavy discount that I get on Pretties for Your Face shades with that store credit from people using my affiliate code, I will buy a lot of new shades so that I could swatch them for you all. And that is why I have this many. I do have 2 shades in this blue palette that I could put away here. So this is Eclipse. And then this here is Noel from the Christmas collection. Actually, I have 3. Heavenly. So I think that's everything that goes in this palette. So here is palette number 2. This is mostly mattes, as you can see. So we have Dandelions Co, Sydney Grace. At the bottom here, we have Touch of Glam. I don't think any to put away in here, maybe 1. I don't have any to put away in here from this palette, but there are some gaps in here because like a lot of these, for example, are in the palette that I built around the Sandman singles. In this palette, I have anything that is in a square pan, which is only my Lethal and my Cleona. Some of my Touch of Glam shades actually used to be in square pans, but I repressed them into circles because most of them were circles and I wanted some continuity. But so we have Lethal, we have Cleona. These 3 are from Shroud. I believe these are called the Dark Hearts Trio. And then these are my 6 remaining Looksy shades. I used to have many more Looksy shades, but I actually dropped the palette they were in and I cracked a ton of them. It hurt my heart, but on the same side, they're like $3, so it hurt my heart a lot less than like if I broke this palette right now. So I am going to put a few things away. I believe this is Predator from Teresa is Dead's collab with Lethal. This is the shade Frequency, which is a white. And this right here is the shade Outrun, which is a bright blue. Okay, this palette specifically has all of my Quicksand Cosmetics, MBA Cosmetics, Shine by SD, and Mon Professional shades. So a lot of glitter going on here. I know that this isn't particularly exactly in the frame, but if I zoom out for some reason, everything becomes blurry. So I apologize, but here's a little shot of everything. And this, I believe I have 1 shade to put back. Yes, it is Mona Lisa from Quicksand Cosmetics. It's a beautiful hollow chrome. This palette is interesting. This is generally shades that were supposed to be in palettes and were depotted, with the exception of most of this top row are copacetic shades. You'll see the copacetic flakies are throughout. I kind of had this color coded, but it's a little messy right now. A lot of these are from, you'll notice, Sugar Drizzle palettes right here. So you'll notice there's like common private labeled shades. I believe this one's actually from a Gourmand Girls palette. This is depotted from an ABH palette. These are depotted from Juvia's Place palettes. So this is a lot of companies that I no longer support that I kept shades from that I then kind of put into different pans on the side, and you'll see them labeled as NLS or no longer support on my BYOPs. I also did depot every copacetic palette that I own. So this is from Rocky Makeup's collab, for example. Some of these up here are from M. Jones collab. So some of these are shades that, you know, they're still on the market. I still support the brand, but I took them out of the palette that they were in to use them as singles because I found that that better served my collection. So that is why. And I have 3, I believe, to put back here. So this is a Jeffree Star shade from the Jawbreaker palette. This is also from the Jawbreaker palette. This is Run from Rocky's collab with Copacetic. And that is everything that goes back in here. Last large palette, this is entirely Terra Moons and Divina shades. So I do have Milky Way from Terra Moons to put back. This is what I built that palette around, but it's like very unique. It's a deep blue, it's flaky, but it has like orange glitter throughout it. It's really beautiful. I'm gonna put that back. A lot of these that are missing here are all of the Divina Moonscapes. They are in my Yucca palette dupes. So that is why there are so many gaps here. Every single shimmer in the Yucca palette dupe is a Divina shade. So that is why all the mattes in here are Terra Moons, and then you'll see some Terra Moons interspersed. Like these 2 are the new Terra Moons. These are some older Terra Moons like Mood Ring, Veil Nebula. I believe this one might be Shattered Stars. But I would say that this palette is about 75% Divina. The last shade remaining in this palette is actually from the Shroud Divinity palette, so I'm just going to put this on the side right now, and if I pull out that palette, I'll put it back in then, but if not, I will put it away after I film so that I don't have to kind of move things around here. So I'm just gonna put this on the side. All right, so the first palette I want to dupe, I'm gonna put it up on the screen, but it is actually from Sheglam. They're the vinyl pop color palettes. I do not support Shein, I do not support Sheglam. So that is why I'm gonna put my own spin on it. I do believe that this palette has things in it like glitter and lip gloss and stuff like that, but I was just really inspired by the colors. So I wanna make a palette where I pull in some of the colors from that. So let's get started. The first shade in there is kind of like a light yellow. And the first light yellow that comes to mind, besides the Creepy Cute palette, for example, is actually a shade that I depotted from an Anastasia palette. It is in here, this shade right here. And this is shade A1. This was from the Norvina Mini 2, I think. But this is the first thing I think of when I think of that like pastel yellow. I see in the viewfinder it's like actually looking very bright, but I promise that this is like a pale yellow in comparison to many other yellows. Our next shade is that bright orange. So again, my mind immediately goes to a palette. My first one that I'm thinking of is in the Adept House of L. But I do have other bright oranges here from the Jeffree Star palette, for example, and this I think is the brightest orange single that I have. Sorry, I don't know what the shade was called because the back is rubbed off and I don't really label the Jeffree Star shades anyway, but it is from the Jawbreaker palette, which was my only Jeffree Star palette at the time that I depotted all these shades because I no longer support his brand. I want to continue with the mattes. The next shade in there, I believe, is a like red cherry lip gloss. So I do also want to pull in this red shade from the Jeffree Star palette. I think this one's called like Licorice or Cherry Wet. I think this one is Cherry Wet actually. So here is Cherry Wet. It is just like a bright red. So I'm going to pull that in exchange for that red lip gloss. And then the last two shades in there, I believe that are matte. I definitely have in mind some Dandelions Co shades. Let me pull out that palette. All right. I know the shades that I could potentially use that some of them might be coming to mind are in the Sandman palette, but I want to see if I could do it without the Sandman palette. So that like purpley lilac, I could use either one of these, but I'm thinking because my palette is looking pretty bright, I'm going to go with this one. This is actually called Lilac. It's from Violet Voss. It was in there, I believe it's called like Sunset or Violet Sunset palette or something, which I got in a BoxyCharm and I depotted. So I'm going to put that in my palette. And then there is a like light baby blue. So I think this might be a good contender. It looks pretty bright on camera though for some reason. Or this could be a good contender. These are both from Dandelions Co. This one is called Forget Me Not. This is from the New Spring Symphony palette. Oh. And this one is Lakeview. I think I'm gonna go with Lakeview. And now for the shimmers in there, there is like this interesting thing going on because I think they're glitters and then like there's this weird like donut looking thing I can't explain. Again, I'll pop it on the screen for you to see. But so what I'm gonna do is a silver shimmer, a dark blue shimmer, and then like that pinky purple shimmer. Immediately something that comes to mind for the silver shimmer to like really spice it up would be Hello Hollow from Touch of Glam. It is just a holographic eyeshadow. If my camera will focus. There we go. So you can see that right there. So I think that that is pretty good to pull in for our silver. Now for the dark blue, I think that we could probably go in with something from Terra Moons or Divina, or we could actually pull something in potentially from Quicksand Cosmetics. But let's see what we have in the Terra Moons or Divina territory. For our dark blue, I think this shade right here, as I'm looking at it, looks like a pretty spot on color for what's in there. The other one that comes to mind is, I believe it's called Giant Pacific from Menagerie, but this is called Seance from Divina. It is like a dark blue with a little bit of a purpley shift to it, and I think that'll be pretty nice. And lastly, we need to pull in that light pink shimmer. I do think we might have some contenders in here. I believe this is Terra Moon's Starburst, right? Yeah, I think Starburst might be a pretty good contender. Thinking of Dina from Quicksand Cosmetics, but honestly, I think that this is what I want to put in. So I'm gonna put in Starburst from Terra Moons. Okay, let's put our palette together. I have my shades over on the side. So first we have A1 from Anastasia Beverly Hills from the Norvina 2 mini palette. Then we have whatever this shade is from Jeffree Star. Again, I can't figure out what it is. It's probably something like orange or orange juice, or I don't know. What else is orange that would be candy? I don't think anything else. So something like that, or it's something like sexual. And down here we have our silvers. This is Hello Hollow from Touch of Glam. Then we have our deeper blue. This is Seance from Divina. Right underneath those two, we have our pinky purple. This is Starburst from Terra Moons. We have our bright red that is taking over for that lip gloss shade. So I believe this is Cherry Wet from Jeffree Star. We have our violety purple color from Violet Voss here, and this is called Lilac, and it's from the Violet Sunset palette. And then we have Lakeview from Dandelion Cosmetics. Now, looking at this, I think that this could actually be a 9 pan. I was originally putting them in that weird shape that they were in, but I think we could pull in one more shade. So I think that we could either pull in like an orangey shimmer or a red shimmer, but let's see what we can find. But this is what we have. Again, this is Quicksand Cosmetics, MBA Cosmetics, Mon Professional. The first one that comes to mind from here is actually Escape Velocity. This is an orange with like pink flecks in it. It's like a very flaky shadow. It's really beautiful. See if we could get that to focus here. Focus, there we go. So I think that's a pretty good contender. I do also have Mother Pucker from Mon Professional. So that's like a pretty true orange with a yellow shift to it. I could pull in a yellow. This one right here is from the Shine by SD. I think this is from the As Above collab with M. Jones and Bizarre Volta, right? Yes, this is called The All. And it's like a pastel yellow with a subtle pink shift in it. Now that I'm looking at it in the camera, it does seem to have a little bit of green. Or one that is like a constant crowd pleaser. This is Queen's Tears from Quicksand Cosmetics. Yeah, I just think I have to go with Queen's Tears. It's so beautiful. It has the orange, it has the yellow, it has gold, it has green, has some blue in there. The new Queen's Tears is even more beautiful, but I know that I have this one already, and look how many Quicksand Cosmetics shadows I have. They're like most of this. So I think we're gonna pop in Queen's Tears to our palette, and then we can put back our other shades. Let's move this to a 9 pan. Okay, so here is our bright little 9 pan based off of the Sheglam Vinyl Pop Color Palette. So let's do some swatches and then we can move on to our next palette. All right, here is our finished palette. Something about this gives me like major carnival vibes, and I really love that. Like an old school, totally not safe for children carnival. Let's go across here. I'll get my arm in a better position so we can see it all at once. So we have Anastasia Beverly Hills A3, that orange shade from Jeffree Star, Cherry Wet from Jeffree Star, Hello Hollow from Touch of Glam, Seance from Divina, Lilac from Violet Voss, Starburst from Terra Moons, Queen's Tears from Quicksand Cosmetics, and Lakeview from Dandelions Co. You can see all the shifts. All right, so I think I am pretty pleased with this palette, so I'm gonna put it to the side and I will probably do a look on Instagram with this week. The next palette I want to dupe has been out for a while, and I'm surprised I haven't tried to dupe it yet. It is the Simply Posh Citrus Punch palette. It is like all those bright colors. I actually don't know if I'm going to be able to dupe the vibes of this. I don't know if I have that many bright colors, so let's see. I think some of these I will probably have to pull from other palettes, like Among the Stars from Terra Moons for that bright yellow, but let's see what we've got. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the shimmers in this palette actually. Shimmer wise, it looks like we have like a yellow to green, a green to silver, an orange to pink, a true kind of what I'd call a hot orange, a true hot pink, and then like a hot pink to orange. So let's try and find some dupes for that first. The very first shade that actually comes to mind for that like yellow to green is Fairy Fire from Divina, which I will pull momentarily. But for the green to silver, the first thing that comes to my mind is Emerald Tablet from the As Above collection. Maybe that actually has more yellow in it than I thought. Here, I thought that there was one in here that was like a green to silver. Ah, there we go. This one was the one I was thinking about. It's like a green, silver, pink. This is also from that Shine by SD collaboration. This is called Bizarre, so I'm gonna pop that in the palette. And then for that like hot pink, I think we could have a few here that kind of have the vibes. So this one is Fire Opal from Quicksand Cosmetics. And while it's not like perfectly that, I do think it's actually prettier than the one in the Simply Posh palette. So I think I feel good pulling this one into my palette. All right, so as I said before, the very first one that came in mind for the yellow was Fairy Fire from Divina. It's just a really beautiful shade. Another one like this that I do have is Fiesta from Copacetic, but let's go with Divina. So we're gonna pull this one in. Now, looking at the oranges specifically, one that does come to mind is this newer shade from Terra Moons. This one is called Proxima. It's kind of like, this is gonna be such a weird comparison, but it reminds me of the color of like old school Cheetos. I think I will pop this one in as well. A shade that comes to mind for coral, I actually have two that are kind of in my mind. So one of them is this shade right here from Sydney Grace. This is called Blushing Peach. But one that has more of a pinky undertone to it is actually Pack Leader from Menagerie. So let me pull that one out. So this right here is Pack Leader from Menagerie. I do think that's got more of what I'm looking for in it. However, another really good contender that came to mind as I opened this palette is actually M80 from Pretties for Your Face. This really beautiful, sparkly shade. I mean, I think it's like actually really no contest for me. It's gotta be M80. Look at that. It's just the glitter, right? Like these are really beautiful and they're shifty and whatnot, but like, look at that. So we'll pull an M80. Now the last shimmer shade is kind of like a pinky purple. I can't really explain it. It's like a pinky purple burgundy. I feel like either this shade from Looksy right here, this is called Crimson Rose. It does have more of like a purpley base to it, but I think it kind of gets at the idea of what I'm looking for. But it's just like much more purple than anything else, you know? But I think we could probably make one of these Cleona shades work. This Cleona shade right here is called Bloodline. I mean, it's got the pink, it's got the purple, it's got some green in it. I think that's a really good contender. Another one with a more red base, this is Torch from Cleona. I feel like it's the shade, at least in these swatch photos I'm looking at, it's somewhere between these two, you know? Like, it's not quite red, it's not quite that pinky purple. This is Smolder from Cleona. I have a feeling this is gonna be too purple. This one has like a black base to it. Yeah, that's like way too purple. That's like one of those classic like green purple multi-chromes. Beautiful, but not what I'm looking for. So I think looking at the shades that I have, the one that would be most unique to it right now would be this one, which I believe is Bloodline. Yes, this is Bloodline. So I'm gonna pop in Bloodline and we'll see how it goes with the overall palette. Mine potentially from my lethal shades. So I think this coral right here, which I believe is Quick Save, is a pretty good contender for this palette. So I'm going to pull that to the side. And then there are a few hot pink shades in here. So let's pull our friend over here. Oh. This is Caps Lock from Lethal. It's like a hot, hot blue-based pink. There is like a burgundy matte in here, so I did think of this one Terra Moons shade. I might be saying this wrong, but I don't know if it's Cepheus or Cepheus, but this is the first shade that came to my mind. I do wonder if it's a little bit more like raspberry looking though, and then a shade from Jeffree Star comes to mind that has more pink, so let me pull out that one actually. This one right here is the Jeffree Star one. It leans more pink, and then this one right here is the Terra Moons one, and it leans more red. So I'm gonna pull in the pinker one from Jeffree Star. This isn't labeled, but if I had to venture to guess, I think it's called Raspberry. Another shade that comes to mind, this right here, this bright, bright yellow. This is from Rocky Makeup's collab with Copacetic. This shade has such an interesting name to me. It's Spatterdock, which I'm not quite sure what that is. I think all of the shades in this palette have something to do with water and lakes and things like that. So it might be something water related, but we're gonna pull this in. Okay, so this shade is from Saints, Angels, Sinners. I could tell you off the top of my head, this was from the Unity palette. Those of you that know me know why this is, you know, hilarious, but this is actually one of my like last 3 SAS shades. So gonna pop that in. Those of you that know, those of you that don't, I could maybe do a video on it in the future, but I was an affiliate for a brand and it went horribly, horribly wrong. That's the short story for you. There is a shade in the palette that's more like a creamsicle orange, so that makes me think of this shade right here. This is A2 from the Norvina Volume 2 palette, and I'd say that's like the perfect creamsicle shade, so we're gonna pop that in. This shade is also from that ABH Norvina palette. It's like a light green and the back rubbed off, but it's A something. So I'm gonna go with it's A3 because we've already seen A1 and A2 here today and they're labeled by row and column. Let's see what we have in the Dandelions Co. and Sydney Grace area here as it comes to the shades that we're missing. So there is like an orangey red. For the orangey red, I think this could be good. This is Amore from Dandelions Co. There is like a bubblegum pink shade in here, which the first one that comes to mind is Bubblegum from Jeffree Star, but that's on my Sandman palette right now. And I think that we could probably pull one of these other pinks from here. I have a few from Sydney Grace that aren't like a perfect bubblegum pink, but they're probably pretty close. This one from Dandelions Co. I think might be a little too like dusty, but the shade is right. It's just not the tone. This is Carnation. Yeah, I just think that's way too light. All right, I think we're gonna bring out the big guns now in an attempt to not take apart a BYOP I wanna keep together. I recently got these 2 Viseart palettes. This one is entirely shimmers. It's the Petite Koi. And then this one is the Viseart Brights. So I think that we can pull in this pink right here. This is even a brighter pink than the one from Lethal. And I think this shade might just be called Pink, if it'll get out of the pan. Yes, this shade is just called Pink. Also a really bright orange in this palette, and we did put my like brightest orange in the other Sheglam dupe, so I'm gonna pull in this from Viseart. I believe this is also just called Orange. These names are like really spot on in here. Okay, I'm missing 2 shades here. Let's put the palette together what we have and then see what we're missing. These are all the shades that I've pulled in and they are obviously not in order, so let's put them in order and see what we're missing here. Okay, so it looks like the two shades we're missing here are a darker yellow and a like coral shade. I actually have a palette that is perfect in mind for this, but you are all going to be surprised. I know, I just talked some mad crap on this palette, okay? But these two shades right here are like perfect. So I believe this is Justice and then this is Tuxedo Rose. So I'm going to pull those in. Probably gonna regret this though, because they are the mattes with glitter and I hate the formula, but we got the color story. And that's what matters, right? Sacrifices were made. Okay, so this is our palette right here. So we've got an ABH shade. This is Spatterdock from Copacetic and Rocky Makeup. This is Lethal Quick Save. This is another ABH shade. This is Pink from Viseart. This is Caps Lock from Lethal. This is Bizarre from Shine by SD and Bizarre Volta and M. Jones. This is Fairy Fire from Divina. This is M80 from Pretties for Your Face. This is Proxima from Terra Moons. This is Fire Opal from Quicksand Cosmetics. This is Bloodline from Cleona. This is an old SAS shade. This is Justice from ColourPop and Sailor Moon. This is Tuxedo Rose from ColourPop and Sailor Moon. This is Orange from the Viseart Bright Mattes. This is Amore from Dandelions Co. And then this is from a Jeffree Star palette. And I want to say the name is Raspberry or Licorice or something like that. Here is our finished palette. The general vibe here was captured. What do you all think? I think we got the vibe. Is it perfect? No. Is the vibe there? Yes. And that's what Duping the Vibes is all about. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed building this palette with me. If you would like to see me build more palettes, give this a thumbs up with your stained fingers like mine. And comment down below and let me know, would you like to see me dupe the vibes? Would you like to see me make my own palettes? Did you enjoy this video? Do you hate this video? I want to know. Give me some feedback. And I will see you all really soon. Have a good day or night wherever you are and stay healthy. Bye.